hot off the presses, if that's still a thing. Ryan Day, he already had that bag, but as I like to say, bags of cash can always get bigger, and they certainly did for the reigning national champion head coach Ryan Day. 7-year deal, extension in Columbus, $12.5 million per year. The commitment from that athletic department and Ross Bjork to Ryan Day solidified with the man who hoisted the trophy at the end of the season for the Bucks. And that is how we begin things here on Big Ten Today. I'm Anthony Herron. There's a lot that we're going to get into throughout the show, but whenever news breaks, you know we have the opportunity to deliver it here on the Big Ten Network. But not only football conversation on the way, lots of hoops that happened both last night and will be taking place tonight on the Big Ten Network. And so to have that conversation with me is my guy, Trent Meacham. There's all kinds of action on the hardwood, Trent. And so last night's game, I think it continues to tell more of the story of this season's version of Big Ten men's basketball. I guess the main thing we know is that it's really difficult to sustain success within the course of this regular season.
And that's what's so important. You know, from week to week, things can change so much. I mean, golly, look at Ryan Day, where he was at one point this year and where he is today. But it's similar in basketball. It's such a long season. You have a team like Nebraska, 6 straight losses. Now they're on a roll. They're back to life. Rutgers, they're as dangerous as maybe anybody with the talent that they have. You felt like they were dead in the water. So it's exciting when you see some teams that we thought were out of the picture, and they got it going now. So that's just setting up for what's going to be a very interesting, exciting finish to this Big Ten season.
That's right. This stretch run is going to be a difficult one to predict, but we know it's going to be extremely entertaining, no doubt about that. And that certainly ends up taking us to our big story. And the big story for today is the accident that was on the hardwood in men's basketball last night. And Rutgers was able to upset the Illinois Fighting Illini. It was back and forth throughout the second half, but Dylan Harper being back in the lineup, being healthy, he's been battling some injuries as of late, but he was sensational. The Rutgers closed the game on a 15-8 run to win 82-73, going over 500 now in the season.
Dylan, you know, your ankle has certainly been bothering you. You missed the last 2 games. Didn't know if you'd play, but when you get out here, heck of a performance. How'd you do it?
I mean, I had great training staff, great people around me, behind my back, telling me, not forcing me to play. But, you know, tonight, you know, I wanted to come out here for the guys. You know, I missed a couple games. You know, I always want to come out here and compete. You know, they got me in the right spots, and that's what we got done today.
It's nice having Dylan Harper back. You know, he hasn't been with us for a long time, and, you know, I thought we gutted it out. They're a great rebounding team. I think we were even on the backboards, but the last 4 minutes we held them to, you know, no points, I guess, down the stretch, 1 point.
You know, we've got to quit making defensive mistakes, and we made so many of them tonight that it was just mind-numbing to me, because, you know, that's been our bread and butter. We've been a top 15 defense all year, and tonight the mistakes we made on shooters and you know, and the fouls, those are things we have not done.
You see the two ends of the spectrum from the two head coaches. We're now back live in our Chicago studios, Big Ten Today, presented by CDW. And Trent, the Illini, they've been a team throughout this season where the talent has been apparent. The versatility and length is something that can give opponents problems. But what stood out to you about how Rutgers was able to stymie what the Illini were trying to do on offense last night?
Well, Illinois got off to a really slow start on both ends of the floor. Coach Underwood talked about their defense. I'm gonna go to their offense. They shoot so many threes. Almost half their shots are threes, one of the highest three-point rates in the country, yet in Big Ten play. And now we've had a number of games. This isn't just a couple games to look at. 27.5% from 3 in Big Ten play. That's the lowest in the league. So I look at their shot selection, and they have to have much better shot selection on that. I know they want to shoot a lot of threes. They get a lot of rebounds from it, but you gotta understand time of game, what's going on, the flow of the game, who's taking these shots, and get to the basket. I think when they're going to the basket, they're starting 2 bigs now in Morez Johnson, Tommy Ivisic. I thought they can get in the paint more. That's where they have an advantage. 6 for 28 from 3 last night. And this has been game after game. There's been some outliers. There's been some games where they've been really hot. They'll just run someone out of the gym. They did against Indiana. They did against Oregon. They've had some games like that. But now at this point, they seem like more outliers. Take the threes when they're there, when they're good shots. but everybody doesn't have to be hunting the three at every glimmer of daylight. And Rutgers, I thought, was a more aggressive team for that 40 minutes of play.
What's your sense as to the why from the Illini perspective? Because it's been such a consistent storyline for them throughout the season that they shoot threes with volume, but they make them so inconsistently. And when they've gone inside and attacked the rack, they've had more efficiency on offense. Is there sort of a design to know that maybe to advance deep in the tournament, they've got to start getting the three ball going? Or why do you think this continues to be a storyline for them?
Oh, look, Ann, I'm not against the three ball. Not at all. It's a tremendous weapon. It's 50% more than the two. But I would just prefer for them to play inside out a bit more. Maybe you're shooting 40% of your shots from threes, but try to get inside first. That shot's going to be there. And that's, I think, something to know. You can always get that pick and pop three, UPSETS. You can always take the quick three. And unless you're just a dead eye, 40% and above, or have that ability, let the ball move. Let it see multiple sides of the floor. Play with a higher IQ. I think they're a little bit loose with the ball. Be more of an aggressive, attack the basket mindset. And those threes will come, and I think they'll shoot them at a better rate if they play inside out more so.
And Rutgers did have, of course, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper in the lineup together and healthy. And we've certainly seen them be able to play in tandem, and they've been fantastic at points this season. But the guys who were talked about as multiple lottery picks, perhaps even both being top 5 draft picks in the NBA draft, we haven't seen that, consistent, exceptional play from them as a tandem. What stood out last night about the way they both seem to control the action in their own way?
Well, yeah, it's been unfortunate because at the start of the season, Ace Bailey was a bit dinged up, and then Harper with his ankle and sickness. Well, watch out now because both these guys are healthy. They're playing well. Ace Bailey, I thought his energy got him going. He had the 18 points, but the 11 rebounds, they needed every one of those. There was a point in the game where Illinois was coming back and really dominating them on the second chance opportunities on that end of the floor. I thought Ace Bailey stepped up defensively and as a rebounder. And then Dylan Harper was the best player on the floor last night. He did it all, 28 points, rebounding, assists, 4 steals, got to the free throw line, 11 for 12 from the free throw line. His poise as a player, man, he's special. And look, and he doesn't have to play. He's already a top 5 pick, maybe higher. He had such a great start to this season. He does not have to play. I love seeing him back out there. And Rutgers is a dangerous team because you have those two guys every night out. I would say they're definitely the most talented, but oftentimes the 2 best players on the court as well. And they needed last night too. They needed one other player to step up. I thought Jeremiah Williams. He can be a bit all over the place. 13 points, got to the free throw line, and was very good defensively against Will Riley the last 5 minutes or so of the game to slow him down, made some crucial plays for Rutgers as well.
And speaking of health, Jeremiah Williams able to sort of get himself right and play the role he played last night. Things may be coalescing at the right time for Steve Pikiell and the Scarlet Knights. I would argue, Trent, maybe the most pivotal game last night was in Ann Arbor as Michigan hosted Oregon. And, both these teams have kind of been going in opposite directions as Michigan's able to extend their win streak. Oregon, their woes end up extending. And 80-76 was the final score. Danny Wolf was outstanding, putting his team and all his skills on full display. One of 5 Wolverines to score over 12 points. And the Ducks did fight back late, but Vlad Golden and the Michigan defense did enough to stay perfect at home.
We're very fortunate to get out here with a win tonight in a very pivotal game. We played well in spurts. We just were having trouble putting a really solid performance together for closer to 40 minutes. But it's February. If you can find a way to win and learn some lessons, that's usually the objective. And but I do think we made enough plays when the game's still these 1 and 2 possession games. Our guys they've been able to get some big stops. They've made big free throws and came up with some extra possessions.
Trent, we got a lot of skilled bigs in the Big Ten, and it seemed like in last night's game you saw Danny Wolf doing his thing a lot in the first half, Vlad Golden doing his thing for the Maize and Blue in the second half of that game. But beyond their length, can I just specifically talk to you about that move, that step back 3 that Danny Wolf had? He's looking like a point guard, man, at 7 foot, little rocker step, a nice little move off the pivot, turn back, and then able to hit a step step-back three-pointer. That's the type of skill that Michigan's big men possess.
Beautiful play. The shot clock's running down. He's got, I believe it was TJ Bamba guarding him, one of the better defenders, physical, quick, he's got length. And that level of footwork and skill from anybody, a 6-footer, is impressive. But that he's 7 feet tall and a big, strong guy as well, incredibly impressive. I thought, that was a three-pointer, but I thought it was the interior play. In a game that was pretty balanced, Michigan got out to a lead and Oregon fought back, but they outscored them by 12 in the paint. They outscored them in second chance points. They got to the free throw line 10 more times, made 8 more of them from the free throw line. I thought that was what got Michigan the win. The closing minutes wasn't the most beautiful level of play from both teams, but Michigan, in a game where they didn't maybe have a great flow offensively, they got critical stops on the defensive end. And I also thought playing through Vlad Golden on a couple of key possessions was big. He made some great passes. Even the play where he had the offensive rebound, missed the dunk. He was very effective, made a big bucket there to give him a 4-point lead as well at one point. So playing through your big fella, I thought that was important down the stretch as well.
And for a team that ended up in the top 10 for an extended stretch earlier in the season, as Oregon did, it's hard to think that Dana Altman is taking any moral victories out of a road loss, and now the losing skid continuing for the Ducks. But did you see anything that you felt like were maybe signs of positive growth at this stretch of the season? Because you're on the road against a team that's been amazing at home this season, one of the tops in the country in Michigan, and Oregon did fight back into that game.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out this Oregon team. There's not one thing that jumps out to me. I think they have to use their depth to more of advantage. They didn't have much off the bench last night, and this is a deep team. Early in the season, I thought they had 10 guys that were playing. They would extend their pressure 94 feet. I think especially against a turnover-pro team like Michigan, who had 15 turnovers last night, I'd like to see them be more aggressive, use that depth, wear teams down. They were unable to do that last night, but they have the talent, they have the pieces. Now we can see if they can find some consistency to get some wins, to get back on the winning track.
Well, the winning track certainly got rolling on the road for Nebraska, and they've started to play better as of late. We've seen the way that Fred Hoiberg has been able to piece things together really on each end of the court, but offensively. As Nebraska got rolling in the second half, I'm not sure if there's a better tandem in the Big Ten than what Fred Hoiberg can throw at opponents.
Yeah, well, I thought, it was a 40-minute game, all right? And Washington was so hot that first 20 minutes. And no, they could not sustain it. Nebraska, maybe a little bit of a slower start, but I thought for the most part, 30-minute game, they were exceptional, especially in that second half. I thought their maturity on the offensive end, how they spaced the floor, they used Washington's aggressiveness on ball screens against them to move the ball. It was multiple guys getting it going. Obviously, Bryce Williams has been playing so well lately, 23 points last night, sieging off the bench. He's averaging double figures in only about 20 minutes a game. Last night, again, 16 points in 20 minutes, 4 for 5 from the threes. This is a complete team effort. In that second half, they were 11 for 19 from threes. Washington only made 1 3. They had 9 assists, 1 turnover, over 1.6 points per possession. I just thought they were flawless offensively. And then defensively, they just stuck with their game plan. They didn't panic when Washington hit all these threes. They continued to load up on the strong side, double the post. They stuck with what they did well, and it just showed over 40 minutes getting a big win on the road.
A big win they did get, no doubt about that. Nebraska, one of the teams beginning to surge a bit here in Big Ten men's basketball, is really not only the top end of the conference, but the bottom end of the conference, trying to make that Big Ten men's basketball tournament. There's a lot on the line as we get into the month of February here. Trent, more from you later on in the show, man. Hang out for a bit. We'll get right back to you. But before we do that, make sure you know that today is the day Husker fans will officially be able to welcome and hear from new volleyball coach Danny Busboom Kelly. At 2 local time, fans can come to Devaney for a welcome celebration that you can see on BTN. That'll be live. And then afterwards, Coach will have her introductory press conference with the media as she succeeds her former coach, John Cook, at the helm. Incoming transfers coming into the Big Ten Conference in football. There is no team with more new talent on the way joining up with their ball club than the Purdue Boilermakers. 29 incoming transfers joining up with Boilermakers football. And you see some of the other teams on the list. A little bit of a roster shakeup is not necessarily all that unfamiliar, but we know that Purdue is going to be one of these squads that's going to have a new look in a wide variety of ways, and chief amongst those is at head coach. Barry Odom, now the head coach of Purdue football, our guest here on Big Ten today. Coach, appreciate you taking the time to join us here. And you know, I tell folks pretty frequently that from my time playing Big Ten football at Iowa, there's not a more intimidating place in the conference when it's rocking than Ross-Ade Stadium. It's really an underrated atmosphere for Big Ten football. And you've gotten to experience it before yourself, have you not?
Great to see you. Thanks for having me on today. You know, a few years ago, 2018, I was a head coach at the University of Missouri, and we had a night game, non-conference, obviously, that we came up here and played. And it was a great game, and back and forth all night. But when you pull up to the stadium, you could feel it on the drive to the stadium. And then you get close, turn around the corner, and get on campus, and the explosion of tailgating and the feel, the smells, the sights, the sounds. One of the unique places that I've had an opportunity to coach as a visiting coach during that time. And then you look at now being on campus for 2 months, and there's not a basketball arena environment that matches what we have at Purdue. And it's all based around the people and the enthusiasm for our program and our university. And I understand, the opportunity to capture that and turn Ross-Ade back into a great home field advantage. And we've certainly got a lot of work to do in front of us. We're excited about that, but we're going to turn this into a hard place for people to come in and play. And we've got to do our job as coaches. We've got to get a team in position to play winning ball. And I know I can feel it every day, the passion and the support and the energy that makes up this great university and this state that will become a great home field for us.
And some of that work that you mentioned being prepared to embark on involves recruiting. And of course, yesterday was National Signing Day. And from a high school perspective, you certainly haven't had much of an opportunity to assemble, the recruits that you got within this first cycle. How would you sort of evaluate what you were able to get done with this very first class you bring to Purdue?
Number one, I think our assistant coaches did a great job once they hit the ground running here, whether they were coaching in bowl games or whatever it was, before that we could get them assembled together on campus. We signed 40 kids, 40 student athletes that will join our program, 29 of them transfers, and then 11 high school kids. Out of that 40, 35 are with us right now. They were mid-year enrollees. So that's a great number for us to add to what the foundation is of the program here. There's roster movement. We understand that. We made some great additions. I think it's even more in our favor that 35 of the 40 are already here going through workouts. Now we're into week 4 of our winter conditioning program. And then pretty soon we'll transition into the Winning Edge program that we do for a couple of weeks before spring ball starts. And then the first week of March, we're going to get started with spring practice. So, the time doesn't wait on anybody, right? It's a sprint with no finish line. The understanding of trying to get our team in position physically and mentally to be ready for spring practice. And then the challenge of every single day an opportunity moving our program forward systematically in the approach of fundamental football, on playing complementary ball, on putting the schemes together, on finding out what your team can do athletically, and then building the schematics around that. It's a fun process. Our assistant coaches have done a great job on putting their stamp on what we think is going to put us in position to go have a successful spring ball, and then that leads into summer ball and then fall camp. So it'll be here fast. The first 2 months that I've been here, it's been wonderful. The outpouring of people and support is tremendous. The alignment of our president, athletics director, and all the things that we've got going on within the program, we're getting things moving in the right direction in a very fast manner.
A pretty significant portion of the transfers that are joining you in Westlife are players who played for you and had success at UNLV. How quickly did you make that decision? That was a part of the process that you'd be comfortable with in bringing guys from out in Las Vegas with you to West Lafayette?
Yeah, I think, it's a delicate thing to maneuver and navigate through because of the respect of the place you're coming from. Also, the relationship, the personal relationship that you have with all those guys that you recruited. You're coming off an 11-win season. There's some guys from that team that are going to have great success in the NFL. They're in the classroom and socially, but on the field, on building this program back to where Purdue football needs to be. And I think there's a lot of value in a number of thoughts that go into bringing guys in a transfer market or portal class. Some of those familiar backgrounds that I've got with those guys, whether I coached at Arkansas or recruited there previous to UNLV, or the guys that I recruited there was able to coach for the last 2 seasons, they understand culturally, the expectation and the standard. And we're setting that as an assistant coaches and myself, but also, that it's a strong vibe when you can get those voices in the locker room, that they know what a Monday practice looks like. They know what punt net drill already looks like and the standard of what that needs to be. Those voices that our guys can create in the locker room when we're not around, that's so important for us to get done.
And one of the high school recruits you brought in, the quarterback in this recruiting cycle, you of course know very well. Your son Garrett is going to join you there with the Purdue Boilermakers after previously committing to you at UNLV. And he had his bevy of offers and opportunities to go to a variety of schools, a high-level recruit. But what's it going to be like? I've got a 7-year-old son, so I don't have to worry about coaching him anytime soon. But what's it like for you in preparing to coach your son in major college football?
It's exciting for us as a family. I'm harder on him than anyone in the building, unfortunately for him. We had a chance at UNLV. My wife and I's oldest son was a linebacker for us and, played 2 years. So that was enjoyable. I never, growing up when they were little kids and starting into sport, whether it was baseball or basketball or football, I never had the opportunity to coach them. This is a very poor excuse, but I didn't have time. Either I was the head coach at Missouri or defensive coordinator there at Arkansas. So it's something that's hard to express my thankfulness and gratitude to having the opportunity to do that. He's going to have to earn it, whatever it is, and every single day, and probably a little bit more because we share the same last name. But fortunately, I won that recruiting battle, and it's going to be a lot of fun over the next 4 to 5 years on what that looks like for him. And then for us as a program, I'm certainly excited about our future.
And speaking of winning, you won 19 games over 2 seasons at UNLV. I mean, it's not a level of success that football program had seen very much over the years. And the previous 5 seasons, the program had only won 20 games. So those 2 years, you had immense success with the Rebels. How much of that do you think can sort of transition effectively to what you'll plan on doing at Purdue?
Well, you look at, every program's different. Every circumstance and situation is different. There are a lot of philosophies that I learned from Gary Pinkel for years and years and years working for him at the University of Missouri on structurally how to run an organization. And it all starts with people. And you've got to be in a position to recruit the right skill set to be able to effectively do those things day in and day out. But I think systematically, there's a number of things that we did at Mizzou working for Coach that I was able to do somewhat as a head coach. And then, specifically what we did at UNLV, I think we've got a foundational approach on what it looks like on the building of a program. And then the fast track on getting everyone in the building galvanized and aligned to go have success. And it takes every single person in our building and every single person in our organization to do their job at a very high level. And then the ability to get guys in position to play winning ball, getting them in the right spots. And then, motivating them in a way that allows for success and getting the most out of them. So it's a process that does take time, but we understand nobody is in a position that wants to hear the word rebuild. We're not into that. We're into winning now, and winning big. And I think as soon as we get that standard and the expectation of what it looks like every single day, then the wins are going to follow.
And I understand there's a couple of position groups. No surprise, programs tend to go through this going through spring football where you're a little thin in certain spots. And so for your first spring leading Purdue football, then how do you go about trying to balance the desire to compete and for guys to earn their spots with recognizing that, you know what, not everyone's necessarily healthy or even on the roster as of yet?
Well, we've got an opportunity, and this is one thing that we've always done in this program. It doesn't matter the age. It doesn't matter the experience or lack of scholarship or walk-on. We're going to design practices that make sure that every single person on our roster have the opportunity to go compete and us to coach them to get in a position to play winning football. So practice, we're going to we'll have two fields going on at the same time. We'll two spotter practices. There's going to be plenty of reps to go around. I think, the thing that you've got to do in order to get in a position to play winning football is you've got to play ball. And there's lifting and running and speed development and all those things. But we've got to be great teachers. We've got to be great coaches. But we also have to make sure that our guys get enough reps to get into position. By the end of spring practice, we know exactly what we have with the group that we've got. We've got to know how aggressive we're going to go be in the next portal window. And then the guys that we bring in for June, how important it is to get them all caught up to speed so that we're ready to effectively be better in August than we were when our spring game happened. So our guys understand that in the assistant coaches' chairs. We understand what we're tasked with, and we know exactly what we signed up for. We're excited about our future and how it's going to look.
Well, I certainly know there's plenty of Boilermaker fans that are really excited about what you're going to do in leading Purdue football. Thanks a lot, Barry. Best of luck to you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
That, presented by CDW, is the dynamic duo of Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Wren, who put the hammer down on the Hawkeyes this past week. They were the first Purdue duo to score 25-plus points in a conference game since Zach Edey and Lance Jones did it on January 31st back in 24. And it was the first time in the Matt Painter era that Purdue's had two players score 25-plus points in a regular season, regulation length conference game. And looking at that dynamic duo of Braden Smith and TKR, they were able to, I assume, make the list for our guy Trent Meacham. That kind of motivated Trent to put a list together of his best duos, I suppose, most dynamic duos, if you will, in Big Ten men's basketball. And they've been fantastic throughout the season. The expectations were there for Braden Smith. TKR has ascended in a way that folks weren't necessarily certain he was going to. So for them, my understanding is they actually top your list of Big Ten duos.
No question. They're at the top of the list. Almost 40 points a game, over 10 rebounds, 10 assists combined, those two. Purdue's got a top 10 offense in the country. And it's because of them. Their chemistry together, the ball screen, how they work is elite. And what's interesting is it's so different than last year. I thought Braden Smith and Zach Edey, the ball screen, was the best single play in college basketball last season. And this year, with Smith again and TKR, that might be the best play of any team in the country. Those two operating in ball screen situations. It's not as many lobs. It's really no lobs to TKR, but it's that pocket pass, and then his ability to hit the floater, his ability to make the next pass, his ability to put the ball on the floor for one or two dribbles is big time, is really impressive. And Smith is just, he's Chris Paul-like as a point guard. So those two are clearly, by far and away, the best duo in the Big Ten and maybe the whole country.
Well, when we look at a duo in Ann Arbor for your next one, when we talk about what Michigan has been this season, and we know how surprising they've been after the struggles from the previous year, but we talked about the bigs, and they're not just kind of your standard duo of big men because of some of that versatility we referenced earlier.
Well, when we think of duos, I think of them combined. So, Anthony, this is over 14 feet of combined strength and skill. Okay. And so you put those guys together on the court. Oftentimes that doesn't work. You don't see it much in college basketball. You don't see it much in the NBA, but their skill sets, their intelligence and how they play the game, how they position themselves on both offense and defense allows them to thrive together, allows Michigan to thrive. Obviously, Danny Wolf's skill set kind of unlocks so many things, but it's been fun. I think there was questions of, okay, two good players, how do they play together? We see that three from last night, ridiculous level of skill. And Golden, I mean, he's playing as well as anybody in the Big Ten. Such a force around the basket. So they've been really impressive, about 32 points, over 16 rebounds combined. They are big, they're hard to stop, and really effective together. So it's been fun to watch.
And in watching that version of Michigan, frankly, it seems a little bit like what we tend to expect in Madison, but there's a duo for Wisconsin, and Greg Gard's offense has been like no Greg Gard offense we have ever seen, but it's not because of what they're doing in the post, it's because of what's happening in the backcourt.
You're right. In Wisconsin, this is another top 10 offense in the country, and it's because of John Blackwell and John Tanjay. Those two guys, they're such physically punishing guards. They're together over 10 free throw attempts a game. So they're just getting in the paint. They can score in the paint. They can make decisions there. They can both post up. They can attack you off the bounce. And then they're creating foul trouble for opposing teams. So, it's one thing to stop one guy like that. Often you may have one player to deal with, but they got two. And Tanjay hit the ground running this season. And then it seemed like Blackwell stepped up. And now it's back to Tanjay. But either any given night, one of those guys can hit you for 20 plus, maybe 30 plus. They're really tough together.
So I'm not sure if you were forced to limit the list to only 3 duos or what, but I do feel like there's a duo in Piscataway that might feel like they're being omitted at the moment.
There's a big miss, Anthony, and I told our producer, John Bolton, I can't go here without mentioning Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, because by far the most talented. And for these guys, it's not just potential, it's production now. And it's just a matter of getting them both on the floor and healthy together. When they're healthy, you're talking about over 40 points a game. Ace Bailey's rebound. Dylan Harper does everything. They both rebound the ball. We're seeing this lately. Now, last night against Illinois, both those guys going, Harper with 28, Bailey with 18, 11. And, if they're healthy the rest of the way, I think they could challenge the Smith and Kaufman-Wren duo because of their just raw talent. They're putting it together on full display. It's really fun to watch.
And aggressive. I mean, when they're healthy, that youth has a lot of assertive nature to it as well. They can take games over. Been a lot of fun to watch when they've both been healthy, no doubt about that. So 4 duos. Trent's top 4 duos in Big Ten basketball so far this season. Tonight, a women's hoops doubleheader tips off with Rutgers against Indiana. Then Iowa clashes with Minnesota. Coverage begins at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. We got a couple of games, a couple of teams that'll be on the hardwood in one game of Big Ten men's basketball action tonight. And each have ridden the wave a bit, but Maryland certainly as of late has been the more consistent squad than the Ohio State University. Mike DeCourcy has Maryland predicted as a 7 seed and Ohio State projected as a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. So big happenings tonight as per usual when teams take to the hardwood. And Trent, Maryland is a lineup where when you talk about their starters, a lot of folks say this might be the best starting 5 in the entire Big Ten Conference. When you look at the Terps, what is it that makes their starting lineup so formidable?
Well, the skill. I think you look at the backcourt. I know everyone wants to go to the front court, but the backcourt, Gillespie, Miguel, Rice, all those guys shoot the ball at a high rate. You're talking 40% from 3, a couple of them above 40%. They can shoot the ball. They got speed. They got experience. Those 3 guards can all light you up for 20 plus any given night. And then you go on the inside, and Derek Queen and Julian Reese, very different players, I think complement each other well. Reese is such a rugged rebounder, great hands, great feet right around the basket. And Derek Queen, just so talented, so gifted, incredible skill for his size. So you throw that together, that starting 5, they're all in double figures. They can all, you all have to account for every one of them. I said the 3 guards can go for 20. Those 2 bigs can go for 25 or so any given night. So the talent is exceptional in that starting 5 group.
We've seen Ohio State beat ranked teams. We've seen them also lose to teams who aren't doing as well. You got one quick key for the Buckeyes tonight, Trent?
Well, they're playing better defensively. They've been very good. It starts with Bruce Thornton. That Thornton-Gillespie matchup will be exceptional. I think on the inside, they're going to move Devin Royal to scoring at 29 against Illinois to max the interior production for Maryland.
Cannot wait to watch that one. It's going to be a big game of men's basketball. Trent always does big work here. Appreciate him and Barry Odom for joining us on Big Ten Today.